Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Mike's MMA Picks here with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. We are here for UFC 266 back at the T-Mobile Arena where we have a larger octagon and we have got Brian Ortega and Alexander Volkanovski set to make their way to the octagon later on this evening. Let's kick things off with the first fight of the night where we have Omar Morales coming in with his 11-1 record as a minus 145 betting favorite and a DraftKings price of $8,500, taking on a Jonathan Pearce who is now fighting out of Fight Ready, formerly with Bryce Mitchell, coming in as a plus 115 underdog and a DraftKings price of $7,700. This fight does take place at 145 pounds. A few things to note. It wasn't too long ago that Giga Chikadze's credentials, his kickboxing credentials were called into question when he fought against Omar Morales. We saw clear as day the difference in levels of kickboxing. Omar Morales will be the better striker here in this specific matchup. Chikadze is on his way to a potential bout with Max Holloway. Jonathan Pearce is a volume striker who really throws caution to the wind and is going to look to pour it on, and he will throw anything out there. Very similar type of fighter to Brandon Royval in some respects, although we don't necessarily see the submission side of it from Jonathan Pearce. He had his shoulder dislocated against Joe Lozon in his debut. In this specific bout, though, Omar Morales typically fights up at 155. Now he's been down here. Looks completely shredded. Looked great against Shane Young. I think his kickboxing is going to be tight in this spot. I'll be picking Morales to win, though. The longer this fight goes, Jonathan Pearce becomes live in this spot. And there is the potential for Omar Morales to fade late, as we've seen him do in a number of fights. As far as the wrestling game goes, it'll be interesting to see if Jonathan Pearce can get this fight to the ground. The folks over at Fight Ready in Scottsdale, Arizona have been doing phenomenal work. And he is a live opponent here. I'll be picking Morales, though. Next up, where we have the former Rutgers football player, Matt Semelsberger, coming in as a minus 550 betting favorite. Yes, he is the largest betting favorite on the prelims here, taking on a Martin-Sano, who his claim to fame really at this stage is being friends with Nick and Nate Diaz. 4-2-1 overall record, hasn't fought in a number of years. Coming in as a plus 375 underdog. Striking, grappling, everything seems rudimentary from the tape that we've seen dating back a few years. 6,800 in DraftKings for Sano. Semelsberger, I like him in this spot. I see him getting the job done inside the distance. Take a look at that minus 180 line for Semelsberger to get this done inside the distance. I'll be picking Semelsberger to win here. Next up, where we have a high-profile matchup between two up-and-comers. We've got Nick Maximov, who's another fighter in the Nick Diaz stable here. 6-0 record, primarily a grappler by trade, positionally sound. Love seeing that. Minus 115. Now, he opened up at one book, I believe it was Bet Online, over at minus 350. He's been bet down to minus 115. DraftKings price of $8,000. You're getting a little bit of value here on Cody Brundage, who we saw him come out and put William Knight in some really tough spots early and took those elbows to the dome against the fence. Got finished in that spot. 7,700 for Brundage. This fight should incorporate a lot of grappling. Maximov's only 23 years of age, so the sky's the limit for this kid. Stand-up and boxing skills are in question here, though there's no doubt he's putting work in behind the scenes with the Diaz brothers, and they like to throw hands, so he's either sinking or swimming out there. I'm going to lean Maximov here. I think this is one of those spots where you want to sit back and let him show you what he's made of. We may not get a minus 115 line again on Maximov in this spot, but Brundage is a fighter who he has the skills to pay the bills. You watch the way he goes about his business, and he's taking this fight on short notice. He spoke about having a daughter with medical needs who he's fighting for, and this is the biggest moment of his career. So under the bright lights, T-Mobile Arena, I'll be picking Maximov, but very closely lined fight, and I will be passing on this one. Next up, where we have Uros Medic taking on Jalen Turner. Medic, Alaskan fighter who has made the trip down to King's MMA, and really, you look at his kickboxing and his striking, this is a kill or be killed fighter, but he has yet to be killed because he's fought a bunch of cans. And now he's taking on Jalen Turner, who that 10-5 record's a little deceiving. He's been in there with Vicente Luque and a bunch of other fighters who blow Medic's competition out of the water. The way I see this fight playing out is Uros Medic's going to come out firing early. Turner defensively has some liabilities. He's been KO'd a bunch of times, out cold a bunch of times, and there's the potential for Medic to come in here and land some bombs early. If that does not happen, if this fight ends up hitting the second or third round, I think we may see Jalen Turner turn the tide, no pun intended, and take out Medic. Look at the Turner by subline. I'll be picking Turner in this spot, and I think we're in for some fireworks early. I think that may be our second or third finish of the evening. So give me Jalen Turner in that spot. Next up, where we have Roxanne Modafferi, 39 years of age, recently celebrates her birthday. Happy birthday, Roxanne. Plus 315 underdog with a DraftKings price of only 6,900. This is a fighter who's come out and shocked the world a number of times, taking on a Blaydes-Santos who really, on the grand scheme of things, she's faltered on the big stage before. The fight against Barella, that was alarming to watch that play out. 17-1 record. That's the only blemish on her record. She's coming in as a massive favorite here. Modafferi had to pull out of a match that was booked earlier this year. She's had some issues with her knees, which she's come out and said this is her 49th professional fight. That's incredible for somebody who lacks athleticism and is a gamer and who has suffered 18 professional defeats. 9,300. She goes back to the drawing board again. 9,300 for Santos. I'll be picking Santos in here and take a peek at that fight doesn't go the distance line. I've seen it as high as plus 190. Santos, if she doesn't get grounded, there's the potential for her to land some strikes on Modafferi and do some damage, possibly ending the fight. She's a very strong, big girl, and Modafferi's aging, and she could potentially wilt out there. So give me Blaydes-Santos, and I see her possibly winning this fight inside the distance. Let's continue through this card. So we've got Shamil Abdurakhimov coming in with a 20-5 overall record, now up at 40 years of age. Has slowed down lately, plus 160 underdog. 7,400 price in DraftKings. when you look up and down this card, you need to take a peek at fighters who could potentially win you some matchups here. And Daukaus is a fighter who has the speed, has a jiu-jitsu game, but man, you got a Sambo with Shamil and that his background. I don't think you want to play around on the ground with Abdurakhimov. Minus 200 for Daukaus. I see Daukaus winning this fight by TKO, and he's going to have a lot of room to dance around and use his footwork in the larger octagon. That is something to be aware of, my friends. Get ready for the evasive fighters to put on clinics, and Daukaus is going to have to be that here. Coffee is delicious, my friends. So give me Chris Daukaus to win this fight inside the distance. I think we're going to see a lot of finishes today. Abdurakhimov, if he's able to get this fight to the ground, that's the potential path to victory for him here. Daukaus, although he's made some improvements, you watched his fights on the regional scene, and there are some questionable tactics being implemented there. Give me Daukaus. Now, this is the fight. This is the fight to watch from my perspective. You got Dan Hooker taking on Hooker-Haqparast. Haqparast has won us some bets in the past when we were playing him against it was Mark Diakese. There have been others through the years. Haqparast coming in with a 13-3 record, taking a big step up in competition here against Dan Hooker, who has been in there with the likes of Paul Felder, Dustin Poirier, etc. Hooker coming in as a minus 150 betting favorite. Now, the book out on Hooker is that he can be a punching bag at times, and you have to take him out of there, or else he is going to come back, and he can weather most storms. Barbosa couldn't do that. Went to the hospital after the Poirier fight. Looked like we might lose him after that fight. And then recently against Michael Chandler was knocked out. So Haqparast, incredibly live in this fight. He's very spry. His punches are crisp. You don't even see him loading up. He's so quick with his release. Now Hooker has the reach advantage here, so Haqparast is going to have to close distance, get inside, and land some big shots. So I think this is another fight that could potentially end inside the distance. I know we've seen incredible toughness on the side of Dan Hooker. The longer this fight goes, I think Hooker comes alive, but he is there to be had early. He's got that tall man defense, and he does have those knees up the middle, so keep an eye out for those close fight. Especially got this fight happening with both guys coming in on very, very short notice, making those long flights across the pond. So give me Dan Hooker. I think this may turn into a war of attrition where you'll see many of the folks in the stands up on their feet watching this one. Next up, wow, Marlon Moraes against Moraes-Dvalishvili. Moraes, it's said how he's taken some big losses recently. Henry Cejudo, Corey Sandhagen. I thought he may have lost that fight against Jose Aldo. This fight, Dvalishvili, yes, he has some issues with his as he's closing distance, he could potentially get caught with something massive, something that could end his night. We haven't seen it happen yet. But Dvalishvili, he's known as the machine. He's got the wrestling. I think Moraes, if he's going to get it done, it's got to be done early, possibly in the first round. If that does not happen, Marlon Moraes, his kryptonite is his cardio. That is a real issue. And it's almost impossible to put into words the difference in cardio here, especially down the stretch. So I'll be picking Dvalishvili in here. Moraes, there is the possibility that he lands something as Dvalishvili's closing the distance, but give me Dvalishvili in this spot. If Dvalishvili wins this fight, I wonder who does he get next? Because Moraes has lost on the big stage a number of times, and that loss against Rob Font, he was like a punching bag out there, just getting beaten from pillar to post, had really nothing for Font. I wonder if he's going to try to alter his game plan a bit. There's no way he's going to come out here and, well, I guess it is a possibility. He could try to grapple with Dvalishvili, but I think that's a fruitless effort. He's got to try to land something huge like he did against Dvalishvili's teammate, Aljamain Sterling. Give me Dvalishvili to win. Next up, let's keep running up this card where we have Jessica Andrade taking on Cynthia Calvillo. Cynthia Calvillo, 9-2-1 overall record. Hasn't spent much time in the MMA game. Earlier in her career, she suffered a broken hand that sidelined her for a significant amount of time. Taking on Jessica Andrade, who has fought at 135 pounds. She was the champ at 115 pounds and now is at a weight class where it makes a lot of sense, though she's coming off of a brutal beating against the greatest women's fighter of all time, Valentina Shevchenko. I know folks want to claim that Amanda Nunes is, but I don't think that's the case. Jessica Andrade has that win over Caitlin Chukagian, where she was able to cover distance and hurt Chukagian to the body. You watch Cynthia Calvillo's fights, very questionable game plans against Courtney Casey, against Marina Rodriguez. She was standing at times in that fight. The one fight where she really put it all together was against Jessica I. Calvillo does have the ability on the ground to find the back and transition, especially if she gains top control. This is another thing. Jessica Andrade, I believe her birthday was yesterday. She's now 30 years of age. Calvillo's the older fighter, 34. The power goes to Andrade. The ferocity goes to Andrade. The boxing will go to Calvillo. The jiu-jitsu, I believe, is a wash. Calvillo fights much better when she's on top. If she can't gain top position, then she's going to have a problem here. In the larger octagon, I can't trust Cynthia Calvillo to implement a smart game plan. She's proven that she's incapable of doing that against Chukagian, getting caught at range and not changing up the game plan. No plan B at all. She thinks she's going to come in here and ground Andrade and take the fight that way. Hey, that might be a possibility here, but I'll be picking Andrade. I think that she has many more tools at her disposal. She's the younger fighter. She's the much more powerful fighter, and she's going to land the more impactful strikes. Next up, Curtis Blaydes against Jair Rozenstruik. Very interesting matchup where we have Blaydes coming in off of a brutal knockout loss to Derek Lewis, where he was completely out. I can still hear him groaning after he got brutally KO'd. 14-2 record, coming in as a very hefty favorite, -325. I think that's a little dangerous coming in here against a counter striker who Rozenstruik would beat the hell out of Derek Lewis in my eyes. I think that wouldn't even be a much of a fight. Rozenstruik, 12-2 overall record, +250 dog, and he could get grounded here and taken out. $7,000 in DraftKings. Though I think that the line on his knockout prop and Rozenstruik to get this done inside the distance is way off. I think that's his only path to victory here. I don't see Rozenstruik winning a decision. Blaydes is going to have to come in here and ground Rozenstruik. And when he does that, it was weird. They had a very strange face-off yesterday. Blaydes reached out to shake Rozenstruik's hand. He didn't want any part of it. And I wonder what that was all about. I think that Rozenstruik is live here. And if he does not win, Blaydes has the potential to grind Rozenstruik out. I don't see this fight going the distance. And I think it is a very dangerous fight for Blaydes, because in the larger octagon, he's going to have to close distance. But the thing about the larger octagon is also that fighters are forced to get up in space. And there are many fighters out there who struggle with that. It's easier to get up when you're against the cage, find ways. So Rozenstruik's been stuck on bottom for a significant amount of time in the past. I'll be picking Blaydes. Well, you know what? I could see Blaydes getting it done inside the distance, but I think he might get caught here. Actually, I'm going to go out and say Rozenstruik wins this by knockout. That may come as a shock, but I have concerns with Blaydes closing the distance. Next up, Robbie Lawler taking on Nick Diaz. Lawler coming in with a 28-15 record. He's been, somebody out there, I'd like for you to count the amount of significant strikes that Robbie Lawler has absorbed since Nick Diaz has fought. That should give you one hell of a statistic. -160 favorite for Lawler. This line is starting to get a little out of hand here against Nick Diaz, who, yes, 38 years of age, coming in looking out of shape. +130 dog. So Diaz is getting his way in a few different aspects. Number one, the weight miss. It didn't look like this fight was supposed to take place at 170 pounds. Diaz looked like there was no way he was going to even come close to that. He came in at 186 and looked a little chunky on the scale. +130 underdog. DraftKings price of 7,900. The other thing is this fight, most of these fights are 3-round fights. Not Diaz. Diaz comes in and it's a non-title fight. He gets a 5-rounder. We know that's his strength, is the cardio, the history of triathlons. I was in the building during one of Nick Diaz's greatest come-from-behind victories when he fought against Takanori Gomi at Pride 33. And I could see Lawler having success early, similar to the Askren fight, had big success early. And then if this fight does get extended, it gets dangerous, especially if this hits a 3rd, 4th, or 5th round. I'm thinking Lawler early, Diaz late. Those interviews were disheartening to hear Diaz speak about how I don't even want this fight. I don't know why we're having this fight. There's no way he wants Usman. He's undefeated in his mind, but you do not want Kamaru Usman. I'll be picking, surprisingly, this is another play. Another situation. I'll be picking Nick Diaz just because there are so many unknowns here. And the weight miss, the 5 rounds, I think we're going to see Robbie Lawler come in and have big success early, and then Diaz come on late. Granted, when you're capping this fight, realistically, it's impossible to do so when you have someone who's been out for so long. There's no way you can rely on the metrics of someone who has been out of the game for many, many, many years. They don't just waltz right back in and are the same person. Typically, they aren't. And the stats back that up. But give me on Nick Diaz in this spot. I think that Lawler, the damage he's taken over the past few years, may come back to haunt him. I know this is a rematch of a fight that took place over 17 years ago, but oof. Give me Diaz. All right. Next up, where we have Valentina Shevchenko against Lauren Murphy. But before that, let's say good morning to Daniel. Good morning, Daniel. Does an underdog win in either of the flyweight fight or the heavyweight fight? That is a good question. Yes, you can say that about Jair. Yeah, you're right. I can't pick Diaz. He's told you not to. You look at sometimes when you watch fighter interviews, though, they they can be their own worst critic, especially Nick and Nate sometimes. All right, so let's get back to this fight where we have Valentina Shevchenko taking on Lauren Murphy. Now, that is not a statistical error up here. You do have minus 1595 for Valentina Shevchenko, the greatest women's fighter of all time, with her 21-3 record, 9,500 price tag in DraftKings, taking on Lauren Murphy, who, let's give her credit, where credit's due. She's a gamer. Look at that. Look at her record, 15-4 overall record, coming in as a plus 795 underdog and a DraftKings price of 6,700. Could she last a while in this fight? Yes. It's all a matter of how long does Valentina Shevchenko want to play with her food. That's really what it's going to come down to. It's if Shevchenko wants the finish, she'll find it, either striking or on the ground. And I'll be picking Shevchenko to win in that spot. There's not much else to say. I don't give Murphy much of a shot at all in this spot. I know they fight for a reason, but I'll be picking Shevchenko here inside the distance, actually. Next up, where we have Alexander Volkanovski taking on Brian Ortega. Now, I've ridden the train for Alexander Volkanovski when he fought Jeremy Kennedy, when he fought Darren Elkins, when he fought Chad Mendez, when he fought Jose Aldo, and both times when he beat Max Holloway. This time, I'll be picking Volkanovski, but I do not have a play on this fight because I have been blown away by the improvements I've seen. They are undeniable from Brian Ortega. I know he got completely annihilated by Max Holloway, then comes back, and people could talk about the elbow that landed on Korean Zombie, but throughout that fight, you saw the jab at play. You saw the lateral movement. You saw the conditioning. Ortega looked great throughout the entirety of that fight. He made it look easy. Against Volkanovski, I love the win streak for Volkanovski. I love everything that he brings to the table, that he pressure cooks opponents, right? That is something that you don't often see. Ortega, I think, is a very live dog in this spot. I do think these odds are off. If you were telling me Volkanovski was minus 130, minus 140, then I'd be more apt to play him. But if you're talking if he's 180, 190-ish, the win probability against a dangerous fighter like Ortega, somebody who has the potential to land a submission at any point in time, someone who has the cardio, someone who has an uppercut, somebody who should have success in the range striking department as well. Volkanovski's going to have to get inside. We know those kicks are coming. It seems like, I'm not a big narrative guy, but it seems like Ortega has gotten into Volkanovski's head, and it's a little concerning. I'll be picking Volkanovski to win. I almost made a play on him, but I just can't pull the trigger because the improvements that Ortega made during his time away are a big enough concern for me versus Volkanovski. I think the longer this fight goes, it's going to give Ortega an opportunity to either knock Volkanovski down. We've seen Volkanovski get hurt in a few fights briefly. Mendez, even Elkins had a moment or two in their fight against Holloway and now against Ortega. I think that Volkanovski, if he's going to get this done, he's probably getting it done by decisions. It's going to be pretty tough to finish Ortega, but I'll be picking Volkanovski in this matchup. Thank you, Super Babones, for checking out the podcast today. So want to thank everybody for tuning in this morning. I want to wish everybody a phenomenal fight day. I've got a number of plays up for the fights for this card today, and it's UFC 266, third-party tracked since 2017, ready to roll. Have a great day, everybody. Remember, go get what's yours, and let's do this. Cheers.